now time for our first panel, Fast Growth Homegrown Champions. Please allow me to introduce the session moderator. Greg CAWS, my boss, is a technology entrepreneur and was appointed president and CEO of BCIC in October 2013. He has founded and invested in many BC companies and sold his first to a NASDAQ corporation. He was a technical architect for TELUS's early digital initiatives and technology lead for the 2010 Vancouver Olympic bid, and we know how that turned out. A graduate of the Royal Military College of Canada, Greg was trained as an aerospace engineering officer. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming BCIC's Chief Executive Officer, Greg CAWS.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here today to lead this dialogue around the revolutionary potential of using innovation as a mechanism to truly leapfrog the competition. Now, we've called this Fast Growth Homegrown Champions for a reason, and you out there are all homegrown. With us, we have four very, very prominent leaders, each of whom has embraced innovation and beyond, creating world-class products and services. Now, when we set up this panel, we found it very, very challenging. We wanted to focus on companies that actively use technology to leverage their competitiveness. The companies needed to be relevant to the audience and have leaders that could inspire us and cause us to think. The Vancouver Board of Trade has a wide membership, and I think we've reached our goal. With us today, we have leading innovators from all facets of BC industry. Now, they represent a vast range of experience, from large, publicly traded, multi-billion-dollar corporations that are absolute leaders in their field, to world-beating entrepreneurial franchisers that use technology to turn tradition on its head. From sales enablement specialists that all businesses can use to radically increase their revenue, to disruptive technology innovators that will create a vastly cleaner world for our children. I hope you'll be able to step outside of your comfort zone and see how to take an example from their courage and outside-the-box thinking to adopt groundbreaking innovation into all facets of your visit. Some of BC's brightest entrepreneurial minds will now share their own stories of how they're innovating and building globally competitive titans. So I'd like to welcome each of our guests up to the stage. First, I'd like to welcome John FLOREN, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Methanex Corporation. Next, I would like to welcome Greg Malpass, who's the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Traction On Demand. Okay, you can go your own way, because I know you always do anyways. That's great. A classic startup. Third, I would like to introduce Jonathan Roan. So Jonathan is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Axine Water Technologies. Welcome, John. And last, and certainly not least, Brian SCUDAMORE, who is founder and CEO of 1-800-GOT-JUNK, You Move Me, and Wow One Day Painting, to name a few. Thanks, man. All right. So next to me, I have John FLOREN. John is Methanex's President and Chief Executive Officer, and he brings more than 30 years of innovative international management experience in the chemicals industry. John got his BA in economics from the University of Manitoba, attended Harvard Business School's program for management development, and the International Executive Program at INSEAD in Europe. Now, as the world's largest methanol producer and supplier, Methanex continues to advance its leadership position in the global methanol industry. By 2016, Methanex plans to deliver growing its operating capacity by approximately 3 million tons of methanol through delivering on a number of value-added projects. And since 2013, the company has added 2 million tons of operating capacity through growth in projects in New Zealand, Medicine Hat, and Louisiana. Methanex is a Vancouver-based publicly traded company. Next to John is Greg Malpass. So after spending nearly a decade in marketing and enterprise sales role, Greg Malpass founded Traction on Demand, a Burnaby-based cloud technology company and software development firm in 2006. Now, he's the first to admit that his intentions in starting Traction were very simple: to serve a small number of clients and help them better unite their sales and marketing teams. But contrary to his early intentions and using his unconventional leadership style, Greg has grown Traction into a nationally registered brand with 125 Tractionites. And in 2014, Traction was named the third best place to work in Canada. Good for you. Now, while Greg rarely admits to having a plan, or even a business guess, he's the first to share his hopes for Traction, which are to build a company that plays a positive and purposeful role in the lives of its team members, customers, partners, and community. So, it's great, Greg. Jonathan Rohn is a clean technology entrepreneur. He's CEO of Axine Water Technologies, where they're developers of advanced wastewater treatment solutions for industrial customers in the oil and gas, chemicals, pharma, and semiconductors industry. He's the founder and chief executive officer of Nextera Systems, an award-winning developer and supplier of biomass gasification heat, power, and syngas systems, where he grew the company from product concept to sales to manufacturing of multi-million-dollar power systems. And just as an aside, where I live, my home is in Victoria, in Dockside Green. All my heating comes from a Nextera system. So it works, I can tell you that. Before Nextera, he was chief operating officer of a NASDAQ-listed corporation, partner in the Delphi Group, and he began his career in the oil and gas with Dome Petroleum and Amoco Canada. So Jonathan currently chairs the BC Cleantech CEO Alliance and is a member of the British Columbia Premier's Technology Council and on the advisory board of the Pacific Institute for Climate Solutions. Jonathan served on numerous clean tech, environment, and economic development boards, including Van City Capital. And he's in the process, and I know he's quite successful, at launching a new $250 million clean tech oil and gas fund specifically aimed at sourcing disruptive clean tech solutions for Western Canada's oil and gas industry. And my partner on the other end, the other bookmark, Brian Scudamore, well-known founder and CEO of 3 franchise companies, an entrepreneur recognized for his passion, vision, and faith in people. Brian started his first business, 1-800-GOT-JUNK, when he was 18 years old in Vancouver. He went on to revolutionize the junk removal industry, but he didn't stop there. In 2010, he set up Wow One Day Painting, and in 2013, his latest venture, You Move Me, which is a unique moving company. Now, Brian and his companies have had celebrated appearances on many programs, such as Good Morning America, Dr. Phil, The Today Show, Oprah, Undercover Boss, Hoarders. Hopefully it wasn't helping the hoarders hoard their stuff, but no. And the story's been told in many publications, including Fortune magazine, the New York Times, Huffington Post, and the Wall Street Journal, to name a few. Some of the accolades include Fortune Small Business's Best Bosses Award, the Globe and Mail's Top 40 Under 40, the International Franchise Association's Entrepreneur of the Year, and while at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, they're a 3-time winner of the prestigious Best Company to Work For award in British Columbia. So, hopefully I didn't miss anything out, and there won't be a test on this. Don't worry. But what I'd like to do is just start. We'll have a conversation. I'll see the question, and then we'll just see where it goes from there. And at the end, there'll be 15 minutes for questions, and I believe there will be forms on your desk where you can write your questions down, and then they'll bring the questions up to us up here, and we'll try and answer them for you. So who would like to go first? I mean, the first question here is, what would be sort of the number one piece of advice you'd have for companies? And I kind of, I won't say tech and innovation, but just number one sort of advice to leapfrog innovation.
I'll bite.
Okay, there you go.
I'll bite. When I think of innovation, the biggest thing I think of is speed and agility, because the greatest innovations come sometimes from small point failures and the ability to kind of zip through them. So that would be kind of my perspective on that. I don't know what you guys think. Failure, innovation? No? Takers?
I'll try. I think for us in Methanex, innovation is all about our people. Hiring the best and the brightest and engaging them and letting them take opportunities and chances around the world. We're operating in 17 sites around the world, so we have a very diverse culture, very diverse set of people working in our business. So you get different ideas from many different cultures, many different people. Seeding those ideas, although we're a $6 billion company, we're only 1,100 people around the world. So you get to know each and every one of them individually and understand their needs and really promote them to be the innovators for our company going forward. So I think starting with the best people, learning and development, and having a great culture in your company is really part of innovation for us.
I guess I'd offer my perspective. Minister Vert talked about the fact we've got 84,000 people in our tech industry. I think we can be proud of that. But I think tech and innovation is often a bit misunderstood. We're not a tech sector in and of ourselves. We are part of a supply chain of many other businesses. So we sell our technologies into the forest products industry, the oil and gas industry, the mining industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the semiconductor industry. So we are part of a larger supply chain. So innovation has to happen in our companies in order to leapfrog and create new standards. But without innovation in companies like John's company, who are users of technology, or Brian's company, who are adopters of our technology, we can't succeed. So we talk a lot about our tech industry, and we probably talk too much about tech, but it's really about our customers. It's about our value, it's about our supply chain. So you're critically important to our success.
And I think my ad is, I'm very ADD, so I tried to keep my concepts simple and memorable, but ABC, always be caffeinated. And while I say that half jokingly, I know the startups will appreciate it, but while caffeine is a stimulant, stick with me for a second, I believe you got to surround yourself with stimulating ideas, stimulating people. We have an open office environment, no private offices for anybody in the company. We're always surrounded by an energy and a buzz, so our culture just is innovative in its own right, is that we're always getting ideas, we're feeding off of each other. So while I'm always going everywhere with a coffee in my hand, it's more that we want to be surrounded by stimulating people and thought-provoking ideas. You know, I don't have the answers, but most people in my company do, and if I can be surrounded by them, that's what works.
Yeah, that's a really interesting theme, the people, because no person is an island within their company, and when you're the boss or the chief executive, it's not really all about you. It's about how do you actually get your people to bring out their ideas. And one of the things that I've seen over the years is that certainly in companies that would be more traditional or have been around a long time, getting that innovation out, percolating it up to the top, or percolating it to a place where you can actually, innovate within your company is troubling. Sometimes people aren't rewarded for trying to change the way we do things. Any comment on that?
I think we reward people who fail, not multiple times,
Okay.
but we want people to make
One chance.
Yeah, if you fail multiple times, you're rewarded with an open door. But if we want people to think big, try new things, take some risks. While again we've got an open office environment, we have private offices for meeting rooms for idea generation. One of them, they all have names, is called WTF, and that stands for wanting to fail, willing to fail. We want people to take risks because that's where the innovation comes from. If you don't try new ideas, if you don't challenge yourself and
when I think of innovation, the biggest thing I think of is speed and agility, because the greatest innovations come sometimes from small point failures and the ability to kind of zip through them. So that would be kind of my perspective on that. I don't know what you guys think. Failure, innovation? No? Takers?
I'll try. I think for us in Methanex, innovation is all about our people. hiring the best and the brightest and engaging them and letting them take opportunities and chances around the world. We're operating in 17 sites around the world, so we have a very diverse culture, very diverse set of people working in our business. So you get different ideas from many different cultures, many different people. Seeding those ideas, although we're a $6 billion company, we're only 1,100 people around the world. So you get to know each and every one of them individually and understand their needs and really promote them to be the innovators for our company going forward. So I think starting with the best people, learning and development, and having a great culture in your company is really part of innovation for us.
I guess I'd offer my perspective. Minister Verk talked about the fact we've got 84,000 people in our tech industry. I think we can be proud of that. But I think tech and innovation is often a bit misunderstood. We're not a tech sector in and of ourselves. We are part of a supply chain of many other businesses. So we sell our technologies into the forest products industry, the oil and gas industry, the mining industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the semiconductor industry. So we are part of a larger supply chain. So innovation has to happen in our companies in order to leapfrog and create new standards. But without innovation in companies like John's company, who are users of technology, or Brian's company, who are adopters of our technology, we can't succeed. So we talk a lot about our tech industry, and we probably talk too much about tech, but it's really about our customers. It's about our value, it's about our supply chain. So you're critically important to our success.
And I think my ad is, I'm very ADD, so I tried to keep my concepts simple and memorable, but ABC, always be caffeinated. And while I say that half jokingly, I know the startups will appreciate it, but while caffeine is a stimulant, stick with me for a second, I believe you got to surround yourself with stimulating ideas, stimulating people. We have an open office environment, no private offices for anybody in the company. We're always surrounded by an energy and a buzz, so our culture just is innovative in its own right, is that we're always getting ideas, we're feeding off of each other. So while I'm always going everywhere with a coffee in my hand, it's more that we want to be surrounded by stimulating people and thought-provoking ideas. You know, I don't have the answers, but most people in my company do, and if I can be surrounded by them, that's what works.
Yeah, that's a really interesting theme, the people, because no person is an island within their company, and when you're the boss or the chief executive, it's not really all about you. It's about how do you actually get your people to bring out their ideas. And one of the things that I've seen over the years is that certainly in companies that would be more traditional or have been around a long time, getting that innovation out, percolating it up to the top, or percolating it to a place where you can actually, innovate within your company is troubling. Sometimes people aren't rewarded for trying to change the way we do things. Any comment on that?
I think we reward people who fail, not multiple times, but we want people to make
one chance.
Yeah, if you fail multiple times, you're rewarded with an open door. But if we want people to think big, try new things, take some risks. While again we've got an open office environment, we have private offices for meeting rooms for idea generation. One of them, they all have names, is called WTF. And that stands for wanting to fail, willing to fail. We want people to take risks because that's where the innovation comes from. If you don't try new ideas, if you don't challenge yourself and push the boundaries, you're never going to discover anything new.
I think Brian's hit the nail on the head. I mean, unusually so, I guess, this early.
They know each other, so watch out for the dynamic.
I think it's a critical idea. In a tech startup, you often start with a blank sheet of paper, some ideas, some brilliant people, and enough money just to fall and fail while you fall over the finish line. And so you have to have people who are willing to take risks, and you have to have people who are willing to fail. And when you're going out to the market, we're always looking for what we call early adopters, and those are customers, and they're a very small segment of any vertical market. Greg knows this well. We live and breathe our early adopters, and these are customers who are willing to take risks. And so if you're actually going to innovate, you have to create culture of people who are willing to take risks, and they're not and they're rewarded for taking risks, and that's a difficult thing to do because risk involves failure, and so you often have to fail. I think someone said earlier today, that tech company was an overnight success after 10 years of failure. You fail a lot. And you've got to have brilliant people that help you get out of those box canyons, and you have to have a culture of teamwork that people can pool their ideas and you can move forward. So that idea is super powerful.
Yeah, so as we talk about culture, what is interesting also is how do you take that into action, right? How do you find or how do you define a culture that's actually going to help you and your organization evolve and also help people really embrace that adversity? And one of the more interesting things that we found is you don't find them in technology, right? It's not just people that went and they became programmers and they figured things out. It's finding novel, smart, creative, culturally fitting people in other industries as well. So some of our star performers are, one gentleman, he was an HVAC engineer for the Surrey School District. And he, in his free time, would build Excel models to try to figure out how to crack the market. And he thought he had successfully cracked the market. So we had to meet with him. Another guy was a helicopter mechanic for one of the outfits out in Whistler, and he was just a relationship guy. And so it's recognizing kind of those kind of raw, kind of say formable skills and capabilities, and bringing those people in and giving them an environment where they can be creative and bring almost kind of the novelty in their own industries or other things they've seen, and even convert maybe what could be frustrations into opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For us, it starts with the vision of the company, and that's global methanol leadership. And if I think back on our history, we started one small plant here in British Columbia in a place called Kitimat, and we've grown the business to be the leader in the industry just over 20 years, to having 11 plants around the world, 6 sites, 17 different places we have offices and plant sites around the world. And it's around that leadership and that really drives what we do every day. Our customers want to buy more from us. I wish I had more to sell. So we're busily trying to build capacity. The challenge in our industry is methanol usually, traditionally was a chemical building block. Just about everything in this room has methanol in it. Now it's really a product for energy and clean burning, and 40% of the demand for methanol today is for energy, and the markets for energy versus chemicals are vastly different in size. So our customers want to buy more. Every time we build a plant, it takes about 5 years and about $1 billion. So these are big bets. So not being an engineer, working with a bunch of engineers all day, you can imagine when a team came to me and said, we're going to cut up an idle plant we have in Chile, and we're going to put it on a boat, and we're going to move it to Louisiana. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And we're going to do it in half the time and about half the capital cost of a new build. I said, I'm very interested in that. So making that decision and trusting, and one of our core values is trust. Trusting our team, although it's never been done before, that we can do it, and we have the team that can execute it. And we started that plan up in January after 2.5 years of actually taking these plants, sit on a site of about 200 acres. These aren't small pieces of equipment. So cutting it up in large pieces, the biggest single piece was 1,400 tons, putting it on wheels that move onto a ship, that move off of a ship in Louisiana, over the dike, under a power line, over the rail line, over a road, and then right onto the foundations, and everything fit right away. Is quite an innovative feat. And now we have people coming to us asking, can we help them move plants around the world? So I think it's around trust, it's about vision, and it's about listening to your customers and what they want you to do. And we're the leader in the industry. We have 15% market share, and we want to continue to grow and lead. And our industry is growing at 3 to 4 million tons a year, so we need to grow at 1 million tons every 2 years just to keep our market share. Big capital and big risk in our business, and it comes back to the people and the trust.
Right. So Brian, you move me. I see.
You move me too, Greg.
I see an opportunity here for moving chemical plants. I think Jonathan's point earlier about failure is something I'd like to maybe go down that path just a little bit. In my introduction, Dean mentioned that I sold my first company to a NASDAQ-listed corporation, which is true. But my lovely wife, Catherine, reminds me about a lot of the companies after that first company that I don't mention. And of course, behind all the success stories, there's usually a lot of work and a lot of tears. At one moment, you're on top of the world, pushing forward, and as we all know, it's very easy to end up right back at the beginning again. So I always encourage people to look upon attempts to do things as hugely beneficial. And maybe we can talk a little bit about just creating that culture, how you do that in your own business, how you change yourself to be accepting of it. Because if you pour tons of resources in and it doesn't work, how do you deal with that? It's placing bets.
Well, I don't know if I like the word failure, but
yeah, I tried to avoid it.
If I go back to the late 90s and fuel cells were all the rage, and we put a fairly large team for our size of company at that time into the fuel cells, because methanol is the fuel for fuel cells. And the vision was to have, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of cars running on fuel cells within the next 5 years. Very naive of us to think that way. The car industry has been around a lot longer than we've been around, and very hard to break into, and a lot of challenging partners with Ballard and others in that space. And we spent tens of millions of dollars trying to develop fuel cell cars. And I wouldn't say we failed, but we didn't succeed. But with that technology, that technology is still around and still being developed, and not for cars, but for power units and standalone power units to replace batteries and diesel generators, et cetera. So the vision, I think, one day we will see methanol fuel cell cars, but not in the time frame that we were expecting, and as well thinking that we could influence that decision, I think, was a little naive and maybe a little arrogant. So there's always a success side of the failure side.
I'll jump in on failure. So I've gone to, if you go from kindergarten to university, I've gone to 14 schools. The only one I graduated from was kindergarten. And do I see that as failure? Absolutely. But the failure got me to realize I wasn't good at school. I love learning. I've got so many books and articles and mentors and people I turn to. I loved learning, but school did not work for me. So I recognized the failure was an opportunity to succeed. I think you fail. Greg said it this morning when he and I were chatting about fail fast. Just it took me a while to realize school didn't work, but get out of there as quick as you can, whatever the challenge might be.
14 times.
14 times.
Awesome.
Nice.
I've failed so many times I can't even begin. I don't know where to begin. I think I guess an anecdote that I would talk about is that when we in the companies that I've run, we've often end up talking to customers who are interested in the solution you've got to their problem. So we're in the business of solving customer problems, and they very often say after you make your pitch, have you had any problems with the technology as you've developed it? And my typical answer is, do you want the top 10 or the top 20 problems? And they're always stunned because they're used to hearing, everything's good, everything's fine. But the reality is, and the honesty is that it's difficult to build new technologies. It's difficult to take an existing standard and completely disrupt that market and crush the competition with something that's 10 times better. It's not easy. And there's a lot of failure that goes along with that process. And you have to build a company and a team of people who are comfortable with ambiguity, because in a tech company, there's lots of ambiguity. You can't see the market, you can't see the competition, you can't see what your economics look like, you can't see your supply chain to begin with. And so that honesty of that failure and that honesty of those problems, I think, is something that we've tried to communicate honestly out to our customers and partners, and the feedback has been fantastic.
So right now, there are 150 projects that are being currently processed by my company, Traction on Demand. And all those projects, we're stitching people, process, and technology together. And what's interesting is, I think when we talk about failure, I think failure is very easy to accomplish if you set kind of your next milestone as completion and there's a full stop. I think that if you start breaking things into small, bite-sized pieces, right? You can start really processing through things, and you can maintain agility through that change. And what's amazing from our perspective, we're working with all these companies who are taking risks. They are really at the forefront of innovating and trying to figure out how to better bend technology and use technology to become more agile and become more significant in their marketplaces. And I would say not a single one of those projects is the exact kind of linear path to the finish. Because the other thing we also forget about is the resiliency to change within the people. So you can still have an incredible culture, and your people can be open to accepting failure or challenges and adversity, but the thing is you need to carry them collectively through a process, and you need to listen to them throughout that process so it can be theirs. And that's where the innovation is born. The innovation comes from the very lowest level in the organizations. It doesn't come from the leader. The leader's job is just to kind of sit above maybe and hopefully create that environment or support that environment and show the openness for the failures or the challenges. But it's everything is incremental, and it's very small change leads to massive and disruptive change.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Actually, I've got a question about everybody's thought processes, because you're all successful guys. Well, except for the failure part before. But I'd like to know maybe from each of you about your thought processes. How do you get ideas to actually do the things that you do? Is it laying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, or you're out for a run? Or suddenly you have this eureka moment. Maybe you don't even know the answer, but I think it would be really interesting to share that and sort of personal, how you approach it. Brian, you've got 3 huge things going right now, simultaneously juggling, and I'm sure there's a fourth
one coming.
In there.
Yeah, fourth one coming. I get my ideas from the space, from the free time that I give myself to be out of the office, sitting in a coffee shop, skiing on the hill, being on vacation. My own ideas, the best ones, seem to come when I'm not focused on the day-to-day, the operations, the details, the weeds, whatever it might be. And then, like Greg had said, I think the best ideas come from our team and our people. And we get to be someone that helps to facilitate or encourage great ideas. And I do find that consistently the best ideas are a lead off from the bad ones. So it's getting people to have the courage to speak up, and you're not going to sit there and go, man, that was the worst idea. But you do want someone else in the room to feed off that and say, hey, wow, that might not work. What if we did this?
Right. But you never get it right the first time.
Our ideas really come from our customers. We're fortunate we only have 40 customers around the world, so they're buying up to $500 million of methanol from us at any given year. So our relationships with our customers are truly integrated, teams of people. You can imagine if you're spending $500 million on a raw material, you've got their best and brightest on the other side of the table, and you need your best and brightest. But instead of an adversarial kind of relationship, what we've done is built what we call a win-win, or relationships where we, instead of trying to divide this pie between the two companies, we try to grow the pie to 10 times larger and then split those proceeds between the two companies. And is that innovative? I think it is. I think anytime you sit down between two large companies with your best and brightest, the ideas flow, the opportunities flow, and the pie increases, and we're better off both for that type of interaction. The other way is, I mentioned methanol is more and more being used for energy and for clean energy, and attending a lot of the clean energy kind of forums. And one company, a ferry company in the Baltic region of North Europe, was facing a challenge, as all people were in that area, with new emission standards, mainly for sulfur and nitrogen, which came in the first of this year, where the industry traditionally burns something called bunker fuel, and that's what's left over when you refine a barrel of oil. That's the 10% on the bottom. You can either burn it on ship, very polluting, or make asphalt. Those are the two applications for it. as these regulations come into North America and into the Baltic region and more widely around the world over the next 10 years, there was a company that wanted to be innovative and use a renewable type product to run their ferries, and the company's called Stena. And you can use methanol to run ferries. And we put a team together with other people, the engine maker, the ferry company, handlers of methanol, and developed a project that is going to launch the first ferry here at the end of the month. On the 30th of March, it's going to run on methanol. And the nice thing about running on methanol, it's clean burning, it meets the emission standards better than LNG, better than marine gas oil, and it's flexible. You can use methanol, you can use marine gas oil. So that kind of innovation is going to drive a whole new market for methanol that's not only good for the industry, but good for the companies that are using that technology, because it's meeting emission standards and you can get renewable methanol as well. So it's really accomplishing a bunch of different things, and that's really through conversations with people and solving problems.
Do you want to go? You go. Oh, okay, I'll go. I kind of like it when you answer the question. Hey, so one of the things that's interesting is like, so where do the ideas come from, right? And I think it's just it's pattern recognition in a lot of cases. And it's basically, we hear a lot of different challenges from a lot of different businesses. They come from every corner. And all of a sudden you start seeing kind of these ideas and these needs kind of pop up all around. And it's when you bring sometimes two things together that you get the most compelling things. Mm-hmm. And some can be failures. And actually there's a really interesting one sitting in our office. And it's the fusion of, it's basically gaming and performance management for employees. And so we have actually a peer-to-peer fighting combat game that our employees get rendered into, and they can duke it out on this video game. And it's impressive, and people often so if you get badged and you get kind of people kind of celebrate you a little bit, your player physically gets larger and stronger, so you can crush people more effectively. It's not a commercialized product. You could argue
it should be. I've seen it. Yeah. There's another opportunity if you want innovation.
The novelty. Oh, you guys want to go get into this one with me? Okay.
I've got some.
But the neat thing about this is there's two opposite things, right? Corporate performance development and incentivizing people, and then fighting and we hear about gamification. It's just so literal. But it's when you bring those two things, those opposite things together sometimes, and you let them kind of come together, and at Traction, what we do is we let people kind of, if they have a neat idea, we'll let them invest some of their time and some of our time in just seeing it through. And then we invest the necessary funds to kind of make it cool. And I think that goes a long way.
Yeah.
Ideas. So I guess I would add that I generally don't ever come up with any good ideas. I think what I'm good at is recognizing good ideas and the kernel of good ideas that other people come up with, and putting gasoline on an organization and trying to connect the dots and helping people connect the dots. But ideas around our business come from everywhere. They come from great board members, they come from investors, they come certainly from our customers. We learn a lot about ideas that are going to help our business from our customers, because we're trying to solve their problems. And then they come back into our organization, and we really try to, very similar type of process to what Greg described. We really try to help our employees connect the dots and put the product development engineers together, the business development people, and 2 + 2 = 17. And but it's generally not come from. I mean, I do remember a meeting recently where I came up with an idea, and the management team said, "Wow, John, that's a good idea." John had an idea.
Did you frame it and put it up in the
It wasn't a
office?
good idea. It wasn't a good idea. It was just an idea. But the point is, they let me. We had a culture that I was allowed to explore that idea fully until it failed. So
lead by example.
Lead by example.
John and I've known each other a while, and there's one very curious thing that you might not know about Methanex is that they have a lot of ships, a lot of ships. They have a huge company called Waterfront Shipping that ships their chemicals. And I think that is not only innovative and world beating, but maybe what you guys could describe is some of the sort of hidden gems that actually give you the innovative edge. I mean, if it's a trade secret, we understand, but I'm always really curious about that. Maybe you could start off, John.
Yeah, so we have the single largest chemical tanker fleet in the world for public-private company called Waterfront Shipping. So our business model, I mentioned, we started with one plant in Kitimat, and as we sought low-cost feedstock, which is really natural gas in our case, these low-cost natural gas areas where you didn't have a large population that could always afford to pay more for gas than we could for making methanol, there were some very remote parts of the world, southern tip of Chile, North Island of New Zealand, northern parts of in Trinidad, for example. So as we built out these plants in these remote areas, we needed to build this logistics capability. So we got into the shipping business and terminaling business and rail cars and trucks and all of that. So we have this fleet of ships that moves around the world, methanol every single day. The single largest one's 100,000 tons, and the average ones are 45,000 tons. And we have an integrated supply chain. When I meet with a customer in Korea, they don't say, I want that methanol from New Zealand or I want that methanol from Trinidad. They have no idea where the methanol comes from. They just know they want it on the 3rd of March and they want this amount of material. So our competitive advantage is our reliable quality supply, and that's why customers buy from us, is because we're reliable, because we have this integrated logistics, which wasn't done in the industry and still not done for most industries, where we have a global position where we can move ships from New Zealand to Europe if we think that's the right thing to do. I mentioned the ferry project where they're going to be running on methanol. We've recently ordered 7 new ships, and they're also all going to be running on methanol. Wow. And they'll have flexibility. Interesting in the shipping business, I've learned a lot about the shipping business. Again, not being an engineer or a shipper, you'll learn a lot of things that you had no idea about before. Ferries move at about twice the speed of our ships, so there's a 4-stroke engine and a 2-stroke engine. And there's MAN Turbo and Wärtsilä, the 2 dominant engine makers in the world. And as Wärtsilä now runs on methanol, our MAN Turbo ships' engines will run on methanol, and we'll have most of the engines in the world have the capability of running on methanol. So that's another innovative thing that we've done to underpin our reliability to customers.
Cool. Well, so Greg, I mean, you're growing so fast. Your family and your business. Yeah. Good luck with that. Maybe you could tell us some of the.
Yeah. So what's hidden? So we're a professional services company, and the professional services category is basically arbitrage. You pay someone a salary, and then you essentially mark it up, and all we are is time. Very early on, and Traction's story is reluctant. Right? I'm a reluctant entrepreneur, and I'll be the first to admit it. I didn't have this vision of building this company. It was just, I got really busy. So I needed one person for one thing, and I hired him on a contract, and then now there's 130 of them. And so there's a couple pieces to that. One is I just make sure every day I go to a company that I want to work for. And that's kind of one very compelling piece. But the other thing that's been interesting is pattern recognition. So we are actually, I would say, more of a product company than a services company. Traction holds IP on over 500 different commercialized software applications that we bring to our customers to allow us to accelerate the cycles of development. We've actually commercialized now 2 of those products. So one actually has a little over 20,000 users, and we're spinning off another technology company around that, and then we're about to launch another company and then also separate that. So what's interesting is we started looking at these common patterns, and so we are essentially selling products as a service in many cases, and we share the IP with all of our customers.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Well, might as well go down the row, Jonathan.
What's the question?
Any secrets that you might have that people wouldn't really understand? I mean, you're good at recognizing opportunity. How do you, or with Axine?
Well, I mean, I'm in the clean tech industry, and clean tech has gone through quite a transformation in the last, I'm going to say, 5 years, where I think a lot of technology companies in the first wave of clean tech were really selling a premium for green. Buy our technology because it's greener, it's more environmentally sustainable, and that doesn't work anymore. Clean tech is moved into kind of clean tech 2.0 or 3.0 or whatever number you want, and today the only companies that are getting capital in clean tech are the ones that have got a rock solid value proposition. So you have to be able to dramatically improve the cost structure of your customer. You've got to have a very strong value proposition as well as the environmental benefit. And I think it's a really healthy thing for our industry, because what's happened is that we're starting to see trends in our industry where the cheapest form of electron that we're going to be able to produce is going to be solar. This year, half of all the new power generation in the United States is going to be from solar. We're starting to see business model disruption with companies like Solar City that are completely turning the utility industry on their head. In my industry, in water, which is a fascinating market, it's a $1 trillion market worldwide, water. We're seeing the introduction of technologies that are going after huge arbitrage spreads, and companies like Axine and Austera and local companies like Saltworks are going after these arbitrages, and with new business models that can generate high gross margins with recurring revenue that have the potential to generate massive returns for shareholders. And we're seeing so these are some of the things that are happening in our industry that are really, really exciting. I think part of what we've tried to do at Axine is to try to be very conscious about which markets we go into, which customers we pick, our business model evolution, and very thoughtful about how we go to market. Right. So some of the things that we're thinking about.
And my partner at the other end. Yeah, not too many though.
Don't give me any really big secrets.
I've got lots on this guy. So my number one secret, I think, is sharing the secrets. Nothing is secretive. So we love to share ideas with other businesses. We believe that we've got more to learn by sharing and giving than we do by protecting our secrets. So one thing that we do, and if anyone ever wants to see this, we do something every day, 10:55 a.m. It's a stand-up meeting called Huddle. It's 7 minutes, and it's a high-energy communication meeting. I know Greg does something, and we've been to each other's. And what it does is it keeps us all on track with our innovation, our goals, everything that we're working on, and we just talk more as a company. So if anyone's ever interested, just email me, Brian, at 1-800-GOT-JUNK.com.
Great, thanks. Thanks very much. Well, I'd like to thank the panelists very much. Now we're going to get some questions from the audience.
So while we're waiting, Greg, we didn't hear from you. What's your secret?
Yeah. Oh, well,
Greg, show us your
My partner is running the company that I left now. We've been running for 8 years, and I'm a guy that has itchy feet. I'm a startup guy, and someone said to me, there's this job where you could be an entrepreneur and help other entrepreneurs. And I said, really? Well, that's kind of interesting. So he's still running our business, and I came and took this great job, which is actually trying to help, create economic growth, get technology out into it. I'm quite a technophile, and if you ever go look at my background, you'll see that I've been through a lot of different types of tech, and I just love it. So. There we go. Questions. Okay, enough about me. What about you?
Greg Minister's got a question.
Oh, Minister Burke. Uh-oh. Well, it was nice having a job. Go ahead, Minister. Thanks very much.
The question is to anyone here, what keeps you in British Columbia and what keeps your company headquartered here as opposed to you become global to move somewhere else?
It's a great question. I would answer that by saying that British Columbia has some of the best technical talent in the world, and in my industry, we need access to brilliant engineers, technicians, software people, and we've developed a culture here, and we've got great educational institutions, SFU, UNBC, BCIT, UBC, and we've got fantastic people resources. Without great people, we can't have a tech industry. So that's number one.
I'll add real quick. you know, all our kids ski together at Whistler, so Whistler's a big draw.
Whistler,
But a beautiful city, it's safe, it's clean, it's a healthy, vibrant place. For a head office company like ours, it can be difficult sometimes. You know, we are far away from most of North America and the East Coast, and it can be tough for travel, but it's such a beautiful, wonderful place that I would never think of leaving.
Minister, a big risk to our sector, though, is the ability for us to recruit people from outside of British Columbia. It's very expensive for people to move here, but also Immigration Canada, if you're talking to your colleagues in Ottawa, are making it incredibly difficult to recruit people from the U.S. We're stuck right now in a multi-month process of trying to recruit people, and I talk to tech CEOs across BC, and this is a huge problem. So if we want to grow our sector, we need to continue to import talent, and we can't have any impediments to that. So that would be a risk. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I think we're actually the province is actually at a point of a TSN turning point, where this used to, when you look back, BC was a great place to start a business and sell it, right? And what is it, 50-itis or whatever the number is, and you got kind of these serial entrepreneurs that would start businesses and flip them, and start them and flip them, and now what's interesting is there's a very quiet pride in British Columbia, and I feel it within my business, and it's actually what's amazing. So we have an office in LA, we have one in Montreal, we have Vancouver. My US teams want to move to Vancouver because they want to be part of the culture that we're building here, which is like we're going to win. And I am very, very vocal in saying I will never exit or sell my company.
Well, we're in British Columbia by accident. As I mentioned, we had one plant and we hired a bunch of people that worked in Vancouver. And as we acquired a bunch of companies around the world, we just kept adding highly skilled workers here in Vancouver. When I think we could be anywhere in North America, as we are publicly traded, we have to have an office somewhere in North America. We have about 110 people here, and when I think, you know, could we be in New York or Toronto or Dallas, probably lose about half of those people, and that's very disruptive to any business. So the cost of people in our business is very low. Building a plant, natural gas, raw materials are much higher cost than people. And it's a great location when you're a global company. I can get on a plane direct to China, direct to Korea, direct to New Zealand, direct to anywhere in Europe. So the time zone works and the transportation works extremely well. So I think to move, you'd have to have reasons why you wouldn't want to be here as opposed to being here. And I echo my colleague John's view on the temporary foreign worker piece of legislation, or not even legislation that came in, but I guess from the executive branch of the government is, you know, we're looking to spend about $100 million here in Medicine Hat in the summer by doing what's called a plant refurbishment. We can't bring workers in from our other sites on a temporary basis to help us with that project. So it's a big issue for us as well. And I'd say the cost of housing. We hire people all over the world, and when they come here and see the sticker shock on the cost of housing, it's always an interesting discussion. So I think those are the issues for us, but I think we'll be in British Columbia for the foreseeable future.
That's great. So we've got about 3 minutes left, so I've got a question here from Art Green of the Vancouver Canucks. Anybody here a Canucklehead? In the time remaining, please give a specific example of how you rewarded a risk taker, and what was the risk, and what was the reward? So, I don't know if anybody's got an idea.
I'll jump in. We have a trophy called the Can You Imagine trophy, and it's a Starbucks cup with a quote on it that says, and it's sort of in glass, it's a quote that says, you are what you can't let go of, and it says, you know, my name, but 1-800-GOT-JUNK below it. It was on 10 million cups worldwide because someone in our company said, can you imagine, we've got this big wall, can you imagine, and we put people's names and projects that they want to make happen, something big, hairy, audacious goal type thing. And this woman came to me in her office, a marketing manager, and said, can you imagine us being on all those Starbucks cups with the way I see it quote? And Starbucks helped me write a quote and put it on there, and 10 million cups, free advertising. So we use that cup as a symbolic, what can you imagine? What can you dream that you could potentially make happen in the company?
Right.
Because it's a Canucks question, I'll answer it with a Canucks answer. So we actually have an award called the Linden Cup. And every quarter, people get one vote, and they vote for the person who basically demonstrated the attributes of Trevor Linden, right? So quietly, working, kind of inspiring change, steps up when necessary, but was the first to step behind their teammates to kind of help them flourish. And so they win the cup, they get engraved in the cup, they get a drink of beer out of the cup, then they can hold the cup over their head and they get it on their desk. And then we give them a box of Detroit stapler as a leave behind with their name engraved on it as well as a lint. And so we actually, we use that as really, it's also a careful consideration on advancement. So with the new ventures that we're launching, those people are the first who are tapped on the shoulder and given the opportunity to lead new businesses.
That's
Questions?
fantastic. Yeah.
Just kidding. That's awesome.
Any other rewards and risks that you guys can remember?
We at Methanex, we have what we call a one-team philosophy, so we don't really give individual awards like some of my colleagues here, but we believe in succeeding as a group. 17 sites around the world, you're always going to have problems. When you're in countries like Egypt and Trinidad and other places, you're always going to have issues, but for us it's about one team. It's about have you achieve the company's goals, and that's really satisfying the customer. So customer metrics for us are extremely important. This project I just mentioned, moving a whole plant from one part of the world to the other part of the world, certainly the team that was involved in that did get a little extra reward in financially this year, because it was quite innovative and quite challenging, but we don't have kind of individual cups or things like that.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I think in my experience, at the early stage, so Axine is a relatively new startup. So at the early stage, we tend to not give individual awards because there's so much collaboration, there's so much teamwork. Everything's done in teams. So we've got overlapping teams that are involved in product development, supply chain, customer development, and so we tend to keep people focused on the company goals, and it aligns with employee compensation and incentives. Earlier stage, way more focus on the company success, and then as companies get bigger, you can start to recognize more of on an individual basis. So I very much see it as sort of a stage of development type of thing in terms of how we think about it.
Right. No, well, yeah, I love those. Thanks very much, Dean. We're done. I'd really to thank you guys for coming out today and sharing your experience. For me, it's been very, very enlightening and actually very, very entertaining. And I'm glad you two down the end were good, and that Greg, you didn't have to move seats. John and I have the ties down this end, so we're staying out of all that. But,
Thanks a lot.